Arts followers. We are in Barcelona with composer Elisenda Fabregas, who will tell us about her work and life. So good morning, Elisenda.
Good morning, Patricia. How are you?
Fine.
On a cloudy day today in a sunny Spain.
Yes, in sunny Spain, but sometimes we have clouds.
Yes, you can have it all the time.
Yes, so we would like to know a lot about you. So where are you from, where were you born, and how did you start with music in your life?
I was born in Terrassa, very near where we are right now in Barcelona. And I lived in Catalonia most of my teenage years. And I started music when I was about 5 years old with my mother. She was an amateur pianist. And later I went to a Catholic school, Carmelitas de Terrassa, and I started my piano lessons, and then I went into the Conservatorio del Liceo, Conservatorio Municipal, and at that time I started also chemistry. I was a science major and music major, double major, until I was about 23. So I finished all my studies here.
And did you finish with chemistry too?
No, chemistry I only did 3 years because I realized I wanted to spend all my life with music. But it was very useful, so I finally just went right with music. I took the final, one of the top degree here at the Conservatorio Municipal del Bruc.
And who was your teacher?
My teacher was Miguel Ferrer. I was a piano student.
Very well known.
Yes, very well known.
Yes.
And I did then a few months with Eulalia Soler, also as a well-known pianist. And I remember during that time playing for Federico Mompou, the wonderful Catalan composer. And I ended up at the Juilliard School in New York City. So
and how was that transition? Don't jump so fast.
Yes, right.
How was that you got there?
Well, I played for Federico Mompou. He wrote a nice letter for me in French. And then there was Convocatoria de Becas, right? Funding available for Spaniards with a Fulbright scholarships. And I applied, and I think I was the only Catalan during that period that I was able.
And we're talking about which years?
We're talking about 1978.
Oh.
Many years ago. So 1978, I was told you have the grant from the Fulbright. At that time it was a different name, but it was a Fulbright scholarship. I was told, we'll give you the money if you get into Juilliard.
Wow! So you had that challenge, and how was to getting into Juilliard at that time?
Well, this is the most adventurous part of my life, I have to say. I left just with a small suitcase, and then was just $400 in my pocket.
So you had to just go there and
I
audition.
just had to go there, and I took 3 months of English, which I didn't know. I could only answer 5 questions. What's your name? How are you? Where? When? And anyway,
and play.
And go and play. But of course, I couldn't even speak. So I was kind of naive in my. But I did meet a professor, Joseph Ray from Juilliard. And he told me basically you don't have English enough to go right now. So he put me in what's called the extension division at Juilliard, and I took private lessons with him for an entire year.
And how did you fund yourself, you sustained yourself during that year, because it's very expensive?
Right. Well, there's a dissertation by a singer called Megan Barrera that actually, sorry, it's not that. It's Gina Park. It's an old student of mine that I finally confided with her, and all this period is there in that dissertation. But anyway, yes, what it is basically I ran out of money. I did run out of money. I did run out of money in New York City, and I ended up in a kind of a place, not a convent run by Catholic nuns, but a kind of a place for girls that don't have a place to go, really.
So, thank God for the nuns.
Yes, actually, yes. And I think I was from September through February, basically, with just very little money. The first month I was at the Barbizon Hotel for Women, and then after a month I just ran out of money, and I had a lot of adventures.
And what happened with the grant, with the scholarship?
Right, so this professor that I met was able to write a letter to the Fulbright saying yes, she will take an audition in May, And anyway, she's studying with me, and then the Fulbright gave me the scholarship, but it took some time.
Good, but it's
for
good
the
you
money.
had that
Yes.
hope.
Yes. So I think it was about March finally that some money came. Yes. So it was.
And you just hung in there.
Yes, exactly. I was not paying anything.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 23.
Wow, you were brave.
But you know, a 23-year-old right now is different than a 23-year-old right then, because I was a native of Terrassa. I had gone with the nuns for 15 years, you know, very naive in a way. And I had not seen the world, so suddenly the world came all to me very suddenly.
But that's nice, you were brave enough to just
Yeah,
take that
I was
opportunity.
totally ignorant.
So sometimes that is better, no?
Yeah,
Because
I
we
think if you know too much, sometimes
Yes.
you're just too logical. I was very, well, it was a very rational decision, you know, to do all that, but I was just motivated by my desires to the music.
And how was the relationship with your parents? Did they support you? They understood what you wanted to do, or how was that?
Well, my parents come from the post-war in Spain, very conservative, afraid for their children, overprotective like most of the parents during that time. So they did help me at the beginning to get my studies. They used to accompany me to Barcelona and did everything possible. But when I came to be 15 years old and my mother just, enough. You know, enough studies, you're becoming too serious.
Too serious, so fearful
So
that
she
you
was-
would become a musician.
Right, she thought being a musician is being a bad girl.
All those stereotypes.
Totally true. And then I just said, well, if I have to be a bad girl, I will be a bad girl. I was never quite a bad girl the way my mother thinks. You know, all I wanted to do was very normal. It was just to follow my inclinations. Yeah, my parents took many years. Well, I've been so many years out of this country. I think not until last year my mother finally understood.
That is good. So what it's showing about you is you were very strong. Your passion for music was bigger than all the other obstacles.
Absolutely.
So good. Now you are in Juilliard School. You have your scholarship. How was that? Who was your teacher? For how long did you stay there?
I stayed there for 7 years at Juilliard.
7 years.
But I was there at the time where the president was kind of on the way out. It was not really well provided for foreign students. So with the foreign students, we were left like, you know, swim or sink.
Just
Kind
on
of
your own.
situate on your own. So it was kind of difficult. It took me 2 years to really speak well. I did meet many performers that are now very famous performers. They were practicing right next door to me, so it was a great place to be with all these people. And I did meet many dancers there, and I had many professional associations with dancers when I was
Because this is very
at
good.
Juilliard.
The schools are right door to
Yes.
next door.
Well, actually, my locker at Juilliard on the 4th floor was right next to the dance division. So I would see always the dancers right next to my locker.
All these handsome men just walking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I ended up working with most of the dance professors there, playing the piano. The Baroque classes, the Spanish dance classes, the modern dance classes. I ended up touring with a company in England in the 1980s.
So it helped you to sustain yourself, also giving you some extra
Yes, I
income.
was being an accompanist to any possible instrumental instrument, to singers. I was a certified accompanist at Juilliard, and then also working with dancers. Also Jerome Robbins, I even did once with him.
Wow.
A couple of things, and then Maria Benitez, Spanish company,
Mm-hmm.
who actually started me into composing.
So yeah, that was the thing I wanted to
Yes,
to
when it
learn.
happened.
What was the moment in which you say, okay, I can compose, or I will compose something, or for which reason?
Okay, I was very driven to be the concert pianist, the typical concert pianist. So I used to practice 8 hours every day or more. I did my Carnegie Recital Hall debut in 1983, and it was very successful.
And what's your specialty, or the
Right.
repertoire you prefer to play?
Well, it was kind of twofold. I played Brahms' Opus 5 Piano Sonata, the 45-minute piece, very big. And then it was my Spanish repertoire. So I play Albéniz and Manuel de Falla.
Granados.
And Granados and Padre Antonio Soler. So all my life I have played those instruments, and also Federico Monpo, obviously he was very. I didn't play that at the Carnegie Hall, but so after that concert, it's kind of something you prepare all your life, and then once it has happened,
the goal is the Mecca. You arrive.
And then after it happens, it's kind of okay, I've done it.
Now what?
Is this what I really want to do?
Yes.
It's like something you don't think until you get it, and then you sit down and reflect. And the truth is
and
that...
how old were you at that time?
How old was I? 27? 27?
Also a turning point in life, when you are approaching to 30s, you just start thinking in a different way.
Well, what I think was not happy is that always when I was practicing all these pieces, I would prefer certain passages of the pieces. I would feel really close to that, and the other parts I was not into it. So I always felt like part of my personality could not be really projected through all these pieces. So I was feeling this way. I actually never really thought about composing because, let me go back to history. When I was 8 years old, I did compose something, and I showed to my mother, and I'm sorry, my mother, she knows, but she did it with all her best intentions, and she said, don't waste your time and practice your pieces.
But and you know that this attitude is not your mother, but I think the academic institutions also are reinforcing that in students now. And in the past, great pianists were also improvising and creating things, but nowadays this is not part of the curriculum. So your mom was aligned with what the school system was saying.
She was just doing what everybody else was doing. But I always knew something was wrong because I used to love to read, and I remember reading always biographies of composers. And I would identify myself with their lives and their travelings and all that. And then at the end I would say, yes, but I'm not a composer. And it was like this sadness.
Oh,
but
so
I would never.
Your longing for being like them.
And then I was also looking, they're men, and I'm a woman.
That's a very interesting point that we will talk about.
Yeah, so...
all of those big guys were always men.
Yes.
The ones who have passed through history.
Right. So this idea of composing, it didn't happen until when I was accompanying the Spanish dance classes at the Juilliard School with the maestro Héctor Zaraspe, Gloria Marina, and also Janet Soros, who was a modern dance person. They all kind of gang up because they saw me more than the pianist, and they say, well, why don't you, when I was accompanying the Spanish dance classes, they used to say to me, why don't you improvise something Spanish?
Oh, they did something very good for you.
Something Spanish. And, I'm the pianist and worried, improvising, you're always...
Also contaminated by what the academia says. No, you cannot dare to compose because composers are gods in the pantheon of gods. Beethoven or these guys.
Right. So I started doing that, and they said, well, why don't you put it in writing? And I wrote my first piano piece, 1985, and it was called Reflexiones.
In Spanish style.
It's a 5-minute piano piece, kind of ABA structure, very simple. But already had my style, I have to say. If I play it now, I can hear myself.
And what is your style? How do you define your style? Sorry, my ignorance to ask this such a difficult question.
Well, okay, this piece has this ABA part. The first part is very lyrical, kind of lamenting, very melodic, with nostalgic, and with this ostinato accompaniment on the left hand. And then the middle is very rhythmic, very energetic, very vital, which are the two sides, I think, from me. This kind of wide range between very sad and nostalgic to very energetic.
So, do you think this reflects your personality?
Yes.
So your different aspects?
Yes, I think I confuse a lot of people because I can be many different things. Actually, my brother told me the other day, you can be many things and it's confusing sometimes to know who you are.
So many shades of grey.
Yes, but I think that's also good for the music, which it sometimes can be confusing for people too, because they will listen to one piece of music and think, oh, she's that. No, I'm not only that, I'm also this piece and this piece. And it's not like there are too many different styles, it's just different aspects.
Of the same style.
Of the same personality. Sometimes But people after they become acquainted, they say, oh yeah, I can hear you. That they hear some turns, certain sounds that I do that become more who I am, and all of it is very much influenced, I think, by Spanish music, which is what I used to listen when I grew up.
And what kind of Spanish music? Because
Right.
Spanish music, what were you hearing when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, we're talking about Francisco Franco, the dictator. He died in 1975. So during this time, I listened to a lot of flamenco, because every time you turn national TV at that time was flamenco music.
You said also that you went down to Andalusia, to Granada for some months when...
Right.
When
I was 20 years old, I went there several times. First time with the Catholic nuns again. They took us on a...
Those nuns have been important. They play an important role.
They did what's called a study trip.
Yes.
Viaje de estudios, it's called in Spanish.
Sí.
And we went to Granada. And that was the first time I liked it so much, and then I went back 2 summers to take part in the International Festival Manuel de Falla.
Sí.
I studied there with Rosa Sabater 2 summers, and I think the second summer I decided to just go and live in Granada. It didn't happen. I studied with Ramon Coll when I was there, to another big name in piano here in Catalonia. And that was about it for the flamenco, and then I left the country. So flamenco always stayed with me. Mm-hmm. And all these memories came back later on at Juilliard, with the Spanish dance classes. And when you are away from your country, it's when you start to remember.
I mean, idealizing and also seeing from another perspective.
After I left Juilliard, I had a kind of a period when I became more of an educator. I went to Teachers College, Columbia University, and I got a doctorate in education. Mm-hmm. Which allowed me to stay in the country also.
And did you have a scholarship also for that? Or?
No, that I was working during the day as
what?
Music program director of the Bloomingdale House of Music, which is in 108th Street, and I was also teaching there. I was working 7 days a week, crazy. During the day there, and then
so
at
they
night.
knew your life. They hard knew your
it
life.
Was the hardest. It's what people, when they say New York is hard, I lived those years. From 1978 until 1993 that I left from Manhattan. And I lived in Manhattan, many different places during that time.
And you were just composing at that time?
I was really not composing that much because I was doing my dissertation, I was working full time. I was doing my dissertation basically.
And why did you wanted to stay and not to come back after finishing your studies? How was that process?
Well, you have to remember my situation with my family had not improved, and so for me going back without accomplishing everything I wanted to do in my life was not a choice.
Yeah. And what was that accomplished? What goal? What was?
Well, I wanted to fulfill myself. I wanted to make myself into something that I would be proud of. And obviously it had not been piano. Piano had been good for me, but it was not obviously exactly what I wanted to do. So all these years I was doing my education degree were years of transition. Mm-hmm. And things started to happen when I applied for a teaching position at the at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And I became there a piano professor.
What a shame, from Manhattan to San Antonio.
Well, I
have been to San Antonio.
Yeah. And I think what I fell in love with San Antonio was the Riverwalk. When they interview you for jobs in San Antonio, they always bring you to the Riverwalk. And after seeing the Riverwalk, you just want to live there.
And also it was just go closer to your Hispanic culture because the language and everything is just
right. And
present.
I guess that was also part of they were hiring me, and also because I had the education degree, and they were hiring me as a professor and a piano professor and a professor of piano pedagogy. So those two, they wanted the Juilliard and the education degree.
And for how long did you stay in San Antonio?
I was there for 14 years.
So tell me about your years in San Antonio.
They were very productive years, I have to say. I had a wonderful office with 2 Steinway pianos, and I managed to write a lot of music. That's exactly the time when I started really becoming more of a full-time writer. In 1994, most of my pieces start really in 1994 all the way until now.
Why was that? Somebody commissioned works to you, or you just decided? How was it?
Since I was, as a pianist, I was preparing to, all the paperwork for your tenure and all that. I had to do many performances.
It's a boring thing.
I had to do many performances. And I started to write for myself and for my friends, violinists, cellists, flutists, you name it. And then I would also organize tours. I became very active touring, doing concerts. And it was wonderful. I could do both, play standard works and also then my pieces. And that's how I started.
And how was it you overcome that limitation or that fear that you said, oh no, composers are only these guys who are men and were... How was that process? Because
I think once I started, I never thought about it anymore. I didn't have that issue anymore because I think the first piece, Reflexiones, in 1985, we then tour. I went and played my piece at Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts for an entire week with the dancers.
So the success of the reception also encouraged you.
Yeah, and the Joyce Theater in New York. So I realized I was a composer. It was I realized that this is what I really like to do. Because I can do it on my own. I don't have to, it doesn't have to be, Saturday, 5 o'clock, perform for a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And it can be yourself. It's a challenge where you can never get to the end. In other words, it's constantly changing and it's constantly obstacles to overcome.
Also reflecting about, learning about things in order to create new works also.
Right, it's just something you can never get bored, and I also like the working with a musician. So that's another aspect that I really like very much, was to kind of, when I work with a violinist and I like something very much about that violinist, try to get the essence of my feelings, that this personal relationship with that. So it started with friends. Mm-hmm. And I have always tried to keep that and try to write for performers that I know. Of course, sometimes you cannot do that, but you have to have a certain kind of feeling, connection, because it's a lot easier than to also write something that is going to go well for them. So I wrote a lot of duos and trios and things like that, and little by little, other people that I didn't know started coming to me. So it started small and then it started to expand.
And how long
it took? Yes, I think the internet. It's the year of the internet.
Thank God. So we are talking now beginning of the 90s, 95,
yes,
90s.
Yes, but it really for me started happening in 2002. Mm-hmm. Because that's when I started my own company, Hidden Oaks Music Company. Mm-hmm. It's a corporation with one person only.
We all have something like that. It's a need.
Yes, and I started to publish my own pieces. And
you created your first website.
I created my first website. I learned HTML with visually, those visual books. And then I started to get emails from people. You have this, you have that. And then I started to make a lot of connections in Europe, and I started working with a flutist there, Christian Meininger. She was the first that got me really into the Spanish music, in spite of my
resistance.
I had some resistance because yes, we all know that.
You didn't want to fall into stereotypes.
Exactly, and yes. But she got me to write Voces de mi Tierra, which has been one of the most successful pieces, and I still kind of miss second thought. Well, I wouldn't say second thought. It's just I'm just surprised that people want to play it so much and they think it's a kind of a different way of writing Spanish music, which I actually never thought about.
How is, because you just mentioned this woman, a flutist. Are more women the ones who require your services as a composer than men, or how is that relationship with performers? Are more the interest that you arouse in performers is more for men or for women?
Okay, I never thought about that, but now that you're mentioning it, I think with the performers that I was working with were, in other words, playing with me as a pianist, violin, or they were always men.
Mm-hmm.
So those I kind of became interested in their playing, and because I met them at schools or whatever. And the women were mostly coming through email.
So probably because they were also looking for other women
Yes.
who, because they felt that need to.
Exactly, and mostly from the US. Some Europeans,
Mm-hmm.
but mostly from the US. And then I became associated with many organizations in the US, New York Women Composers, also the International Association for Women in Music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I participated in some of those concerts.
So
And
it's a certain like awareness that is just growing.
yes, and of course then in 2003 the first publication of mine through Friedrich Hofmeister in Germany. That was in 2003, and that was a very productive collaboration with them, and they're still publishing my music. And also with Alphonse Leduc in Paris. They published, actually those were the first ones. Alphonse Leduc was the first one in 2000. They published my sonata for flute and piano and Andante Appassionato for flute solo. Those were two pieces in that. But with Alphonse Leduc it was a little more difficult because it takes 3 years for them to publish.
Yeah, those processes are very long.
And right now actually they're being bought by music sales. They no longer exist. I just found out now, which just worries me. But anyway.
But this is the times we are living is.
But I think the publications help a lot because Hofmeister goes many parts of Europe and Asia to the fairs, and they distribute the music. And also the recordings that I did with Hensler Records with the Christian Meininger trio, that help. I think that's actually what really...
But in conjunction with the internet, you're president.
Totally, yeah, the internet. I think without the internet, it would have been... I don't know, it would have been very difficult.
Very difficult.
Because I was in San Antonio, I was not in
Yes,
New York.
Yeah, and even if you would be in New York, I mean, you have the scope is one much more limited.
No, I think the internet, I think for me and especially other people like me, that's perhaps because I started composition later also. I was 33 the first time I wrote one note down.
But I don't know if I agree in the sense, yes, officially you started composing, but you have been preparing yourself all your life,
sure.
acquiring the tools and the sensitivity and everything you needed, you were developing since you were 5.
Actually, I think it's probably a better way to, in my opinion, to become a composer as a natural process of being a performer, because then you know all it takes to be a performer, and you're thinking as a performer in the pace of the music and what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes composers are only trained on the theoretical
isolated from the reality of being in front of the audience.
Absolutely, and I think the music definitely sounds different when you don't think that way. So perhaps it was a necessity to do that. I mean, originally in the great composers, they were all performers and composers, most of them.
Yes.
And
how do you see yourself in the lineage of of the history of music in the women composers? Have you traced some connections or you
no, I've never tried to do the genealogy. No, actually, I've never.
Or influences.
Influences. That's another thing.
The women, I mean, women.
From
because
women.
That's hard because we have been we receive influences by men and.
Yeah, I do not. Actually, I'll tell you. The first time I became acquainted with women composers was not until 1993.
So your composers from this time are really opening the ground from the for women in the future, women composers.
Yeah, in 1993 I created the Mostly Women Composers Festival in New York City, and I invited.
You created.
Yes, I had it for 3 years, and it was called Mostly Women Composers Festival because when I was invited to a concert were all men and I was only me, one woman. So it was...
That's the way...
Now it's the opposite. So I was having all women in the concert and one man.
That's good. So they still have some space in your...
I mean, it's a kind of a playful way to kind of be a little... with
Not to be close to...
with a sense of humor, and that was very important to me because I received the first year 350 scores, all of women.
Wow!
And I realized how many women there were. I did research. I read some of the quotes of Clara Schumann saying, "I'm a woman. You know, how can a woman expect to write? You know." So then I realized
all these women who renounced to
yes,
their own career.
Yes. I realized all the sense of inferiority of women through the ages, and then tried to put myself in perspective, also where I came from Spain, with what I was being told there. So it was very important for me that year, 1993.
And what happened with all these works you received from women, and did you create a network of these women so you have the contacts of those people?
Yes, I kept for quite a long time those. I still have many contacts from that time. Some of these organizations of women composers that I joined were because of that.
And did you receive any grant to do this thing, or how was that?
I was not so good at doing that. I actually never tried. I tried running the festival without trying to get money.
I completely understand you.
The first time I did it at Bloomingdale House of Music, second time Columbia University, and the hall there. It was all done in a very good faith of mine and doing all the work. And for personal and professional reasons, you know, I had been writing until then. I think it was almost 20 years already, but I've never studied composition. Mm-hmm. So I decided I wanted to have a paper that said I'm a composer, because from the beginning people were still treating me as the pianist who composes. And that always bothered me, you know, that you, in this day and age, you
wanted to have the credential.
Well, you're only a pianist or a composer. Well, I wanted that because, well, I have to get to more personal questions. I have a focal dystonia, and this for the camera now. Focal dystonia on my second finger since 2006, and so that I realized that it was going to be problematic to keep a concert career and you know, to keep performing constantly. Mm-hmm. And so I did want this document that said that I was a composer. So, and then I applied without having any composition degree. I applied to Peabody Conservatory, and they accepted me for the doctoral program.
That was a great...
yes, I felt very good. Yes. Because I thought, well, maybe they're going to ask me to do the master's degree. No, they got me right into the doctoral program. And I did it in 18 months. Actually, it was fairly easy because, you know, I was a composer already.
Yes.
And so I enjoyed very much the analysis classes there. I didn't write much music while I was there because I was just doing the classes. And I wanted to finish as soon as possible because it was very expensive. And it was a great experience. I have still very good friends there among the faculty and some of the students, and I don't regret at all going there. I actually enjoy it very much. I love the institution. So at that point I had finished all the coursework, and it just came onto my lap. An old friend of mine said, there is this job available in Korea.
Wow, and you are a brave, like, gypsy soul.
And they told me, I think they would love you. And that was a piano job. And they just sent the resume, and you know, by email they hired me just like that. And I was teaching for 3 years at the Chuge University for the Arts in Seoul, and I was teaching about 16 students there, piano students. It was a wonderful experience. The problem is the language, obviously, that hardly anybody spoke English.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how now I would like to talk about the influence that had the fact of living and being in Seoul in your compositional output.
I think it's too early to tell, because maybe somebody will find some influence. At the moment, I don't know. But I have to say that in Seoul, I became acquainted with traditional Korean music. Mm-hmm. And there is an incredible resemblance to flamenco. There is a traditional Korean music called pansori, and it just sounds like flamenco. Of course, they don't have the guitar.
And the instrument. I went to a pansori performance in the flamenco festival of Barcelona.
Imagine.
So amazing performers and a lot of passion too, and
it's all about passion, and it's the same background. you know, the flamencos are like the blues in America, the field workers, the lower segment of society, kind of repressed and kind of singing their sorrows. So yeah, in that sense, Korea is, I guess it's influencing me. I'm interested in the rhythms they have, for example, and I've been thinking about using them. And I actually, in my classes that I teach now, and now I teach at Kyunghee University, there is a class I teach cultural history of Eastern and Western music. And I do teach Korean music. Imagine, I teach now Korean music and Korean culture.
Oh, that is very interesting because it's forcing you to get to know the culture. And how many works have you written since you are there?
Actually, I've been very, very, very productive.
That's great.
I wrote a cello concerto that was for my dissertation at Peabody. I wrote my first serious, symphonic work, Terra Mater, for an orchestra.
When was that?
It was 2011, performed by the Wonju Philharmonic, and Park Yang-min, who's the Korean conductor who asked me.
So it had been also fruitful collaboration with the
very,
musicians.
very, very. Somehow, I don't know how it happened, because I'm surprised sometimes. I just happened to get to know some very people who took liking on me, my teaching first, and then somehow started working with them. And it's been very productive. It hasn't stopped since then. Now I also have a commission from the Puchon Philharmonic for 2016 for another symphonic
You also
work.
had a commission here by the Auditorium in Barcelona.
That's right, yes, in February 9, 2014, this year.
This year.
I wrote my first symphony for the Banda Municipal de Barcelona, a 30-minute work. I was very happy to write my first symphony. It's something that composers want to get over, your system. Now I have written a symphony. I feel pretty.
And also very meaningful that was for some orchestra or here in Catalonia, your land.
Yes, oh yeah, of course, yes. I mean, this was a big moment for me because it was a way to show, especially my family.
To be recognized.
I mean, just for my family. If only my family had come to the concert, it would have been just fine.
Yeah.
Because my family never quite understood what I was doing. 36 years away, my parents don't have a computer, don't know really what email is.
Yes,
they don't have a clue.
They're in a different world.
Yes, and I tell them what they do, and they don't understand. And they say, well, yeah, but when is going to be here?
Yes, to see, to experience, feel here.
So finally they came to the concert, and my mother was almost crying, and all that, and all my family. So actually that was a big boost to my sense of that I'm accomplishing something.
Like something like closing a
circle, yes, circle. Because that was a big, it's like a spine in your skin, and finally, seeing my mother proud of me was very important to me. Yes.
And now after this, how do you feel that you have a new strength or new something? Or
I think something has changed actually, yes. After that concert at l'Auditori, in the nicest possible venue, the Pau Casals, Sala Pau Casals, with all those people and my family, and then all the other people I've met since then, I think it's like a geometric progression. I feel now everything is kind of opening up for me very quickly. And
that's good. That means you are in a great moment.
Yes, I think I am, and I just wish I had 20 years less.
No, because remember now life is expectative, it's longer, we are in the middle of life in the best possible moment.
I think women have to work a lot harder to get anywhere, because the networks now, there are more women, but it's usually men's networks, and many times, unless you're married to one of the men in the networks, like many women have done, it's very hard to get into those networks.
Yeah,
it's almost impossible.
It's true.
And especially for women composers, I think in America, for example, only 2% of women composers are teaching full-time in universities.
And this is very worrisome if you think that in the US is where they have more opportunities. So imagine the rest of the world.
Yes, imagine.
Imagine the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult, and in a way you have to make choices for your life. because you cannot do everything, and you have to sacrifice certain aspects of your life just in order to do, a certain number of years. If you want to do 100%.
Hours, dedicating hours of concentration.
Yeah, and sometimes people say, well, you're selfish, because you don't do that or do that. No, it's not being selfish, it's being responsible.
Yeah.
Because I think if you try to do everything and not well, at the end, you're not going to do everything well.
And now thinking in future, I have heard that you have so many commissions, so many works that you have to write. Tell us about that.
Okay, let's see. I should include you in that, yeah?
Oh, good.
Well, first of all, then I just finished a triple concerto for violin, cello, and piano that it's going to be premiere. It's almost 90% the date, but it's February 8th, 2015 by the Nova Mundi Trio. It's going to be performed in Atlanta, the premiere in Atlanta, by Atlanta Virtuosi. That's the name of the group.
I know these people.
You do?
Juan,
the
Mexican.
Yes, he's the
yes.
conductor.
So let's continue.
Yeah. And then it's going to be performed in Mexico a couple more times. I don't know, they're doing that. And they wanted a Spanish work again. Spanish.
Yeah, the cliche, the stereotype.
Yeah, so
it's so hard to
yes.
to break those preconceptions.
Yes, so I did write something quite Spanish actually, quite similar, not similar, but in the same vein.
I have sung with that orchestra.
Huh?
In Atlanta, I sung with the Virtuosi. I won the conduct.
Yes.
Some years ago, I was there.
Oh, you were there?
Yes. So this is a small world.
Well, I haven't. The funny thing, I haven't met the trio, the Nova Mundi trio. I haven't met anybody. Everything is through internet.
Thank God, internet. How many doors it
But
opens.
for example, the pianist Becky Billo has played Mirage in one of my works already for 4 years. They play What is de mi tierra already in South Africa and another world. But I haven't met anybody. And everything
this
is
the magic of internet.
Absolutely, that's what I mean. Without the internet, it would have not happened. All these contacts, it's impossible.
It's impossible.
It's
God
amazing what you can do
in this historical moment. And next
So
work.
after the triple is writing some songs for you, Patricia, for the Barcelona Festival of Song in June, late June, July.
2015.
And we're still talking about the text. We haven't talked about it yet, but anyway, we have to.
The idea is to be, exploring the world of women.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. You want to dedicate this festival to the
women.
Yes, which will be the first time.
First time.
And that's the 11th year.
Yes.
Yes, and of course, I could speak just an entire hour about all
No,
your
but let's talk
accomplishments. And you check her out.
Continue.
And let me see if I can remember right now. Okay, the next project is a flute and harp work for Christian Meininger and a really great harpist. I think her name is Bertha. I'm sorry, this is all again through the internet. I can't remember the name right now. That's going to be, I think, on a Catalan topic, something to do with Catalan dances, song-based. I'm interested in that topic now and going back to my roots now and searching more through Catalan music. And that's going to be recorded for Hensler Records in February 2016. Then this work, symphonic work for the Puchon Philharmonic, which is a commission, 15-minute work. It's not going to be actually an overture, but it's actually going to be on the body of the concert. And they were interested in the Catalan rhythms, not songs, rhythms.
It's very interesting how the interest in the Catalan subjects and music is just arousing right now.
Well, the conductor, Jan Min Pak, came to conduct my symphony at l'Auditori in February. So that was his first trip to Catalonia.
So he fell in love like we all
Yeah,
did.
he went to the Gaudí Cathedral, and of course he saw the rhythm of and he might have done some search, and maybe he didn't find many things with rhythm, or maybe he just heard some sardanas and thought it was very interesting. So actually I'm in the middle of researching that, but I was disappointed to see that there are not many books written on rhythm in Catalonia.
That's the book you have to write.
Or you. But there are many books on, there are
melodies,
on melodies, the
songs.
songs. So anyway, I'm thinking about doing a suite of dances catalanas, or Catalan dance suite. Would be a suite. After that, it looks like there will be, I guess I can speak about that because it's been very recent, 2 works with conductor Lorraine Celeste Fox. And that's going to be symphonic, well, it's going to be with a string orchestra and percussion and perhaps guitar and piano. It's still being worked out, all that. And it's going to be a flamenco, a totally real flamenco work, which, why not, you know.
It's also in your upbringing.
Yes, it is in my upbringing, and I have actually never really done a really flamenco piece. So actually it's kind of exciting, all the danger side, and the sensual side of flamenco, you know, the real rough side. Why not? I think it's in me. I think I can do it well. And then the other piece would be a suite. Now it will be a song cycle of songs. That's going to be very interesting. It's going to be with you again.
What an honor for me.
This has been a very fruitful trip to Catalonia for me. Met so many great new people here, including Patricia.
Thank you.
And this is going to be, the text is going to be interesting. It's going to be, the conductor wants a text that is Catalan at the time when it was kind of departing from the French language, which is around the medieval times. It's around the 9th century. So I'm trying to find, I thought I could find some women's poetry. All I can find right now is a lot of troubadour women, you know, Countess of Dia, one of my favorite troubadours. But anyway, I'm still researching that. So that's second. Yeah, that would. Well, you know, we're still talking with Lorraine, but probably it's 2016. 16. This is 2016. And then I'm also in the works for a string quartet and a piano trio, but I can't talk too much about that yet.
So this is great. So you are in a great moment.
Yes, I think so. I feel like that, and I feel ready now to have a lot more experience now with the orchestra too, and with all the instruments in general. And it's like the older you get, the more you know what you want.
That's great, and you also you know better what you don't want.
Exactly. And I think, again, going back to being women, I think this is something we fight all our lives, because we're always under somebody else telling us what to do, you know. And this is hard. I think it's hard for women to really become yourself, and especially when you leave your country too. I think for me, leaving Spain and going to another country, and then the identity crisis.
But I think this is a necessary and it's a great experience that enriches in many, many, many ways.
But it takes many years to kind of overcome everything.
Yes, but I think it's worth it.
And then, of course, now in Korea, another place where you have to kind of recreate who I am, you know, in another culture. And now
you are challenging yourself
constantly.
all the time, constantly.
And now coming here and rediscovering my culture, because I hadn't lived. I've been here now 2 months. This is the first time since 1978 that I left.
Wow, so this is great that we have found each other.
Because every time I was just coming for 1 week or 2 weeks on a vacation without seeing anybody. So this is the first time I'm really living back and actually living in my own place for 2 months in Catalonia. This is a different experience, and it's a different country than when I left. And it's great to rediscover it, yes.
So I think we have been very, very interesting conversation, and also very inspiring, and we are now curious about all the things that will come from you in the next years. And I hope this interview inspires people, encourages people to go and hear her music and to research about her, because her work is really fantastic. So thank you very, very much, Elisenda, for being here with us in Mundo Arts TV, and I hope you will come back very soon. Goodbye to Mundo Arts followers.
Thank you very much, Music.